Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 6 of Vuelta a Catalunya 2025. Today's race was supposed to be 160 kilometers, about 100 miles in length, with 4 categorized climbs and its summit finish. We backed the film up yesterday and we look at stage 5 where there's a time bonus sprint. We saw Juan Ayuso win that 1 second third place time bonus sprint that put him in the race leader's jersey. Now, Primoz Roglic might not have been sweating those details too much, but that 1 second, along with a few stages before that where Primoz Roglic and Bora Hansgrohe messed up the tactic on the other time bonus earlier, 2-3 days earlier, and gave time away to Juan Ayuso. And then yesterday, when you look at the time bonus, they messed up the sprint again, and Juan Ayuso got that 1 second, so now he's back in the race leader's jersey. Now, we wake up today, if you're sitting on the Chesterfield watching the race, well, you know it's been neutralized. The main stage that was supposed to be on stage 6 today was supposed to have 4 categorized climb and a summit finish. Instead, when they're cutting the tape there, all the riders are leaving off on a neutral section, and they don't even know how today's race is going to go yet. The officials haven't even 100% decided the race. Well, before we get into today's race, I'd like to talk to you guys about Raycon's everyday earbuds. If March Mayhem's getting a little too noisy for you and you need to tune it all out, Raycon's everyday earbuds are for you. With active noise cancellation, you can block out the neighbor's lawnmowers while you're watching the classic races up in Belgium. If that's not enough for you, the 32-hour battery life will cover you throughout the whole day. And if you used it all day long and you need a quick charge, well, Raycon's quick charge function will get you charged up 90 minutes of listening in a 10-minute time. I personally like to use the Raycon everyday earbuds when I'm making breakfast in the morning while watching the bike races, so I can bring you guys the butterfly effects and great details. Now, I love the active noise cancellation, the new sweat-resistant design, so that when I'm on the trainer, I can stay fit and be ready to bring you guys all the races and details. I personally like the royal blue color and the concrete protective case because it matches my bike, but they got plenty of other colors to pick from to match your own style. So if you're interested in a premium quality earbud at an affordable price, go to buyraycon.com/Horner to get 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. Brought to you by Raycon. Now let's get into today's race. Now we see the riders coming through the forest here. Not much wind, looking like it's blowing too badly right now, but earlier they said they were 100-kilometer winds up at the top of the mountain, so that's why they've changed this all up. We still don't know, as we're watching the neutral section, exactly what kind of race we're going to get. There's talks that there's going to be 2 laps, and there's talks that there could be no racing at all. So it takes a little while of the neutral section while I'm sitting on the Chesterfield watching the riders set an easy tempo here. And then we see Primoz Roglic start coming up to the riders up front. He's talking to Soler. He's getting a little bit anxious right here. Soler is going to send him up to the official's car as he leaves the front of the peloton. He's going to ride up to the red car there, the official. They're going to have a little powwow up here. Then Primoz Roglic is going to drop back. Then we see Marc Soler go up from UAE Team Emirates. He's having some chatting. And we see Juan Pedro Lopez from Little Trek up there as he's getting a little frustrated. And you see his hands are kind of flowing around all over the place. Now, what's really happening here? Okay, it's very difficult when you're planning the main stage. I mean, this is a big summit finish. It's the last real big stage where Primoz Roglic can use his climbing powers over Juan Ayuso from UAE Team Emirates, if he does have better legs. We don't know that yet. We haven't seen Primoz Roglic drop Juan Ayuso, but we saw him give up time bonuses multiple times throughout this last week, and now he needs to make up 1 second. So all the riders are a bit stressed, and they all are thinking about details differently, and they all want this race to play out. Some want a full-on race of 160 kilometers, and they just want to battle in the wind. I can guarantee that. Other riders, for sure, want this race to be canceled, and it looks like Juan Pedro Lopez would like to have some kind of decision made at this point in time so he knows if he's racing or not. Now, this always happens, and I can take you back into yesterday's E3 Saxo Bank, whereas Mathieu van der Poel, after he won E3 Saxo Bank solo in magnificent power and style, but afterwards he was complaining because when there was the crash in the first part of the race, 30 minutes, 1 hour into the race of E3 Saxo Bank that we didn't get to see, his team, Alpecin Deceuninck, Israel Premier Tech, and Bora Hansgrohe had to chase full gas to catch that group of 50, right? Okay, so now he's saying after the race that he didn't like that tactic. Well, they have different opinions. The guys in yesterday's E3 Saxo Bank had a different opinion of when they could start racing. Maybe the breakaway of 3 was already up the road, and maybe teams wanted to have somebody in that break. I don't know the reason, but nobody's on the same page. Again, when we compare it here to Catalunya Stage 6, everybody's going to be on this different page, and most likely no one's going to be happy. But if I take you back into Paris-Roubaix last year, where Mathieu van der Poel had Alpecin de Koenig on the front, I can show you the crash where Tim Miller went down and Johnny Milan went down in the crash, and Alpecin de Koenig didn't wait. That's with 150 kilometers to go. So what I'm getting at when I'm comparing these three races of last year's Paris-Roubaix, this year's E3 Saxo Bank, and now stage 6, what I'm getting at is that everybody's always on different pages. It's always like that. That's why you need lawyers in life, right? So eventually the official is finally going to come and make a decision. It's going to be about a 25, 27 kilometer race that he's going to tell the peloton. So we go back and start looking at the back of the peloton. We see riders right around that time where it was Adam Yates getting rid of some clothing. We see Little Trek back there, and that's Quinn Simmons at the back of the peloton. When we know the racing's going to start pretty quickly up front, because we start seeing UAE team members, Marc Soler and his teammate throwing his jackets off. We look at the back of the peloton. We see AG2R tossing their jackets, and now that we see the race official blowing the whistle, that means it's race time. Finally, a decision's been made, and we're back to racing. Now, everything after this moment, once you get into racing mode, starts to change a little bit, because as a professional rider, this stage was not set the way we're used to having it. You're used to waking up, having breakfast, get on the team bus, arrive at the start line 1 hour before the race, and then you're in race mode. But since the race didn't happen, everyone's in different modes still right now. They're still thinking differently. Some want to race full on for the stage. Some just want to get today's race over with. And then, of course, the GC guys just want to get through safe. But Primoz Roglic would be absolutely devastated at this moment because it's not a summit finish stage. So everyone's got to flip their minds back on, and some flip it on quicker than others. So we see up front, it's Carlos Verona throwing an attack from Lidl Trek. He's got on his wheel Picnic. That's Frank van der Broek. Van der Broek wants a field sprint back here because he's got Pavel Bittner, so he's sitting on the wheel there of Carlos Verona as they're going down the descent. Verona's pulling the front the whole time. We'll see FDJ's Remy Rojas bridge up here, and then with 19 kilometers to go, we see Kern Farmo's Diego bridge up. Now we got 4 riders in the front. All 3 are working, with the exception of the Picnic rider, Frank van der Broek, the 4th rider he's sitting on. Behind, we look, it's Ineos on the front. Now, are they riding right now for Axel Lawrence to win the sprint, or are they riding right now for their GC guys, Egan Bernal, who's sitting 7th, and then 6th, Abid de Plus? I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're going full gas on the back, and we're coming into about 13 kilometers to go as the road starts to rise up. We'll see that Verona throws in a huge acceleration. This is going to drop Remy Rojas and Diego from Kern Farmer off the back, but Frank van der Broek is still locked onto the wheel there, Verona, and still not working. We go further back, we look at the peloton. It's Ineos driving it on the front, but there's chaos. It's been strung out. It's been suffering on the riders in the back because this is a very short and explosive stage. Anytime you shorten a stage, it makes it very fast and very difficult on the legs to just wake up and get in the mood, especially mentally when you've been shut off and turned back on throughout this whole stage. But Ineos are turned on right now, so they're on the front of the peloton, and Verona's just getting wrapped up with 10 kilometers to go by Ineos. After this, Ineos stay on the front. Now, this is a little bit surprising to me. As I already explained, they have 6th and 7th on the general classification with Lawrence de Plus and Egan Bernal. I thought that they would be more interested in going for the stage victory than they would be protecting 6th and 7th, but it looks like they're going for the 5-kilometer rule where it's going to allow all the GC guys to get the same time, and then everyone's going to race for the stage afterwards. But there'll be no time bonuses throughout the stage at the 5-kilometer mark. It'll just set the time for GC. So we see Ineos going full gas at the front. That's Michael Leonard up there, and then he's going to pull off and blow at about 7.3 kilometers. Next up is going to be G. Thomas just behind him and Omar Fraley. Omar Fraley is going to be the next rider from Ineos to blow. So they're selling out 100% for the 5-kilometer mark. Otherwise, these guys will be pulling a little bit softer. By pulling 100% means that they keep the peloton together. No one can throw any attacks on the general classification and get a little bit of gap on 6th and 7th on GC. I don't really like this tactic. I would prefer to race for Axel Lawrence and try to win the stage and do the field sprint rather than race for GC for 6th and 7th. But Ineos have different plans. That's why it's being strung out and everyone's starting to hurt at the back. Next rider to blow is going to be G. Thomas. As we go up front after G. Thomas, it's going to be Lucas Hamilton up there blowing at about 5.1 kilometers to go. And then we'll see Nairo Quintana from Movistar come to the front. Looks like he's throwing an attack, but that's not what's happening. That's why he's looking back over his shoulder. He'll back off the throttle a little bit, pull the peloton back together, and then pull him up to 5K to go. That means there's no more time change affected right now in terms of splits in the peloton once you got the 5K to go, so everyone's going to get the same time. We start coming into the next attack, and we see it's FDJ throwing in attacks, and then it's Astana throwing in attacks as they're coming up to the tunnel. We look at the back of the peloton that's blowing up back there with Remy Rojas, who was in that first break. He's blowing and his legs are dying. That's how fast this peloton's going. They come out of the tunnel, and we're back with the cameras in front. We see a group of 5 riders up there, and Quinn Simmons is in the group, and picnic rider Frank Vandenbroek's in this group too, but Frank Vandenbroek doesn't want to take any pulls up front. Again, he's protecting the stage victory as they're trying to help Pavel Bittner win the sprint here. So he's up here shutting things down as we see another group of 3 in back that has, again, Carlos Verona coming up. They'll bridge up to the front. Now we got 8 riders in this front group. It's a little bit chaos happening in the back of the peloton, but everybody's going fast down this descent. We come into about 1.4, and we see there's another group of 3 riders there trying to bridge across. In that group of 3 there is Pavel Bittner. As they're bridging across to the group, I'll call it 8 up front. We'll call it 11 guys now as they bridge at 1.2 kilometers to go. The road starts to rise at 1K. Once it starts to rise, Carlos Verona's on the front. We see again picnic rider Frank Vandenbroek close by trying to slow things down. As the peloton's hot on the heels, we'll call it a second or 2 behind, but still a gap on this group of 11 riders up front. And then Quinn Simmons throws in an acceleration about 900, 950 meters to go. As he throws in the acceleration, he's getting a gap right away. Carlos Verona's looking over to his left, seeing his teammate attack, so he's going to back off for sure. Post-picnic, Frank Vandenbroek's going to try to set some tempo on the front as the peloton's coming from behind. Once the peloton starts coming from behind, we're coming up to this roundabout where there's going to be a split, and we see that Quinn Simmons goes to the left, and Albacin de Koenig, who was catching the break back there as Quinn Simmons was launching up the road, they're coming through the right part of the roundabout. I'll call that Del Grosso. As Del Grosso's coming through the right there, he's going to come around the right. Quinn Simmons already exit out the left with about a 5-second gap. He looks back over his shoulder. He sees it's Albacin de Koenig on the front. Then he turns his attention back to the pedals as he's pushing hard. Albacin de Koenig blows right at this moment. As he starts to blow, Leonard van Etveld from Lotto Destiny is going to throw an attack with an acceleration. Now the cameras give us the overhead of the rooftop here with about 400 meters to go. As they come out of the rooftop with the cameras back on Quinn Simmons, he's looking over his shoulder, exiting out of this left turn as it flattens out and gives Quinn Simmons a little bit of a break. He doesn't see anything as he's looking over his shoulder. And then a moment later, once he's going forward, we look back, we see it's Pavel Bittner, picnic coming around the left turn. He's flying around, but still 4 or 5 seconds behind Quinn Simmons, who's coming into the last and final corner as the road pitches back up. Once he does, we go back with the cameras, and we see Pavel Bittner's flying through this right corner at Mach speed. We look just behind him, it's Leonard van Etveld and Vendrami from AG2R. Corbin Strong, another sprinter for Israel Premier Tech's, about 2 spots back behind them. As they coming out behind Quinn Simmons, it's Pavel Bittner punching full gas, and he's got a gap on Leonard van Etveld. That means this kid's coming fast, and he's got about a 4-second gap to make up. Quinn Simmons again looks over his shoulder, but this time he's looking under his arm. As he looks under his arm, he guaranteed he can see what's coming back there. He keeps sprinting hard on the pedals. Then with about 25 meters to go, as Pavel Bittner's quickly coming up to the back wheel there of Quinn Simmons looks again back over his shoulder, realizes he's going to have to throw in one more big acceleration as he pushes up off the saddle to start sprinting to the line. Pavel Bittner's starting to reach the back wheel there of Quinn Simmons with about 5 meters to go, but then he blows, and Quinn Simmons sits up and celebrates a Stage 6 victory here for Little Trek and Quinn Simmons' first World Tour victory. Congratulations, Quinn Simmons, well deserved. As he crosses the line, pounds his chest a couple times and then shoots the gun afterwards. We look back at the stage to see who got second. Well, of course, second was Pavel Bittner, and then third, just back there suffering big time, Corbin Strong, who accelerated past everyone to round out the podium here on Stage 6. Now, in the interview for Quinn Simmons, he said that he was at the back of the peloton when it all started off, and he had to bridge his way back up to the front. He thought today's stage shouldn't even go on. And again, when we're looking at all the different opinions, it always changes from race to race and person to person on how they think about how the race should go and be developed. But Quinn Simmons, who didn't even want to race today's stage, ends up winning it and takes a fantastic first World Tour victory here against a quality field. Now we start looking at tomorrow's stage, the last and final stage here at Vuelta a Catalunya. 6 times on the circuit, going up a massively steep climb. It's going to be the last opportunity for Primoz Roglic to make up for a few of those sprint time bonus mistakes that Bora Hansgrohe and Primoz Roglic did coming into those that allowed Juan Ayuso to have the race leader's jersey now by 1 second. So we got a big battle on tomorrow, stage 7 at Catalunya. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and hopefully everybody agrees that, well, the butterfly effect is where you want to come to get your best race information. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.